Hello once again, and welcome to episode 2, series 2 of our UKRG short conversations. We are recording on the afternoon of Friday, 15th of May. I would like to introduce Christian McCarty, founder of Paradigm 33. Paradigm 33, he has a background in engineering and a degree in systems science from City University London. Prior to starting Paradigm 33 in October 2014, he spent 15 years working in fine art as a full-time freelancer with the Royal Collection and with MoMA Art. It was here he gained his extensive experience in all aspects of multimedia, international exhibitions and installations. Paradigm 33 specialises in complex installation, transport, fabrication and bespoke casemaking for renowned institutions, collectors, conservators and artists worldwide. Today we're going to be talking about the technicalities of on-site operations, so how Christian's teams will work with at-home teams in museums under the current restrictions. As usual, we'll try to whiz through the questions quite briskly, and so if all is well, I will start with the first question. So how quickly have you been able to initiate a return to operations on site, and what measures did you have to consider for your technical teams?
Thanks for the introduction, David. So we managed to keep going, I think longer than most. So we were still on site 2 weeks beyond the general public lockdown in the UK. And part of that was actually dealing with some institutions, COVID risk mitigation, moving work, just doing things that just being prudent. After that, we're completely dependent on our clients. So, if the museums are closed, if nothing's happening, then nothing's happening. We basically had a fallow period, and I'm happy to say we reopened, I suppose in anger, towards the end of last week. The workshops opened. We had our first bit of site work this week, but it was more site work as a consequence of transport. So, an hour and a half, a couple of hours in 2 different locations, doing some packing up, doing some transportation. We haven't seen a return to installation or projects or show changes or anything like that. And I'm not sure when we will. I think everything seems to be moving in the right direction, but we'll have to see.
Can you describe then how you envisage coordinating exhibition installations when you return fully to site work, while still adhering to distancing guidelines? And what do you think will be the most significant effects?
There's a big part of me that I think all it will do is emphasize the fact that if you're involved in an installation, some of the things that underpin a successful installation, are communication, collaboration, and understanding. And let's face it, on both sides of the fence, if an installation isn't like that, or a show change isn't like that, it might not be the nicest installation to be involved with. And so, for me, I think it's an extension of all of those procedures. So, we'll be, in order to coordinate an installation, we have to have a conversation beforehand. We have to have a discussion about what order, what sequence, what's complex, what's out of the ordinary. We have to have all of those discussions beforehand. So it just introduces something that, we'll have to deal with at that point, and have that collaborative approach to essentially protecting, your staff, our staff, and everyone's families. In terms of effects and practical measures, you've got the government guidelines, I think, as your essentially your bare minimum, your legal responsibility and your bare minimum responsibility to your crew and to everyone you work with. We've then tried to apply an understanding, an anticipation of what different clients' requirements might be, and also apply a human approach to making people feel comfortable in their working practice and going beyond what that might be. And yeah, there are all sorts of ideas, and one could do all sorts of things in terms of just going onto site. You know, we've had things as simple as putting half a dozen door wedges on every truck. You know, obviously you're going to have hand sanitizer and all those sorts of things, but you know, where are the pinch points? Where is it going through a door with an artwork and someone else has to hold open the door for you? That's a really basic example. On the other end, we've put in place COVID testing for our entire crew if they want to have it, and should a client want us to have it. You know, notwithstanding there's obviously a whole load of issues about, you know, the practicality and the efficacy, you know, of those tests, but it's something that you can do.
In conversation with the key art transport companies, something that came up was additional risk assessments from the clients, from the institutions themselves, to be provided to the companies as well, to as a demonstration as well that those institutions have considered the safety of all of the teams involved. Do you think that you could something similar would be required for Paradigm 33?
I think risk assessment. Sorry, hang on one second. We have an invader. That's all right, don't worry. Here we go. Yeah, turned it back on. There you go. You good? Okay. Well, I've lost my thread now.
Risk assessments from the institutions.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously, it has to be considered as part of your risk assessment. We do our own risk assessments. You'll do your own risk assessments. I'll go back to the point about communication, collaboration, and understanding. And for me, I feel as though it's a real benefit that we actually have really good relationships with our clients. So we have a good working knowledge of their spaces. So the better that you know someone's space, the more able you are to empathize and anticipate jointly what those pinch points might be and where there might be an issue, you know, depending on, again, everyone's particular space. Sorry, excuse me for one thing. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is minimize, you know, those contact crossover points. Those become the real flashpoints of this whole scenario. And I guess those are where, you know, you look at most.
I suppose in these different scenarios, do you anticipate any issues with virtual supervisions? So if you're thinking about other parties that might be involved in the installations that you're working on, so that might be in-house technicians or in-house conservators, but as well as couriers, if such a thing is going to be possible anyway.
You know, we're in the business of solving issues, so you know, I don't want to sound flippant about it, but I think we'll just deal with that as and when. And I mean, really, that would be more of an issue for a lending institution or for yourself in terms of a virtual supervision. We'll have no issue with a virtual supervision, but then you have to consider whether, you know, your lender or are they going to be happy with that. But, you know, assuming there's a desire and a will, you know, to make these things happen and to, you know, to produce shows and to, you know, display artworks, and, you know, we'll just end up having to work, you know, we're working together towards a common goal.
Given the government guidelines as they stand and the possibility of possible quarantine issues when travelling outside the UK or coming back to the UK, how do you anticipate your operations might be affected outside the UK with this?
Yeah, I saw that question, David, and unfortunately I've tidied away my crystal ball, and I'm really, I don't know. We're going to have to play it by ear on, you know, on a personal or on, you know, on behalf of my organisation. Our work outside the UK tends to be really highly skilled or really complex, which is why someone has asked us to leave the UK to go and do that, because we're not, we don't have shuttle trucks running backwards and forwards across Europe. We do, we work in a slightly different way, I guess. We're in in a focused way. And so I don't really want that to stop. I know that we've got projects that people have been talking about whilst this has been going on, that should be happening in France, that should be happening in other places. But how we'll make that happen, we'll just, if there's any way that we can make it happen in a safe way, then we will. But what the reality will be, you can't say. I don't think at the moment.
Fair enough. I suppose just to wrap up and considering some of the fabrication activities, but do you anticipate any problems in the procurement of materials and equipment? So from buying PPE, acrylic, or right over to how to handle hired in equipment that you might have to use?
Okay, so at the moment, I don't anticipate any issues. We had enough stock prior. We've donated some stock, held some, for us as part of our planning. In terms of hired-in equipment, we really try not to. We've been building up our own set of equipment for a long time now. So, for us, if we start to talk about hired-in equipment, then it means a job of a certain size, which means there's enough time for planning, which means there's enough time to, whether the process be you hire it 3 days early, it gets disinfected, and you just have a longer hire period. And there are lots of, I think, reasonably straightforward solutions to those issues, which just need a bit more planning. And then as far as PPE goes, I would imagine that there's going to be increased supply as I guess over the last weeks, as different things happen and change across the world, that those supply chains will essentially come back. That's my hope anyway. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we'll wrap up.
I just lost you there.
I think we'll wrap up. I think I'm still broadcasting. So thank you very much for your time. Please, everybody, keep in touch. There'll be more conversations to come. Keep an eye on the e-bulletin website and the Twitter feed. Christian, thank you very much indeed.